Hello, Stephen White, TrekBoy89 from SteveArts89 here. Discovery Season 2 finished, and I did my little review, and I've had a bit of time to think and watch other people's reviews, and it's one of the things about Discovery. It's designed to be entertaining, and you're supposed to just view it and not really think about it, and really just enjoy the visuals and the emotions. It's very emotional and spectacle driven. It's not really an intellectual show when you think about one that has complicated, thought out stories and plots. So the problem with that is that's appealing to more of a Star Wars crowd, more of a general science fiction audience that just watches science fiction on the side and doesn't really pay a lot of attention to it. Whereas Star Trek was always designed for intellectual people to examine and explore and watch and view over and over again and get it on different levels. So that's part of the problem with Star Trek right now. We've got these two different groups looking at different products and also looking at the same product from totally different perspectives and fighting to the death online, basically. So I looked at a lot of reviews and videos, and it's fascinating to look at both sides and to see the people who love it and just speak about it on a purely visceral level and emotional level and how they felt about it, how it amazed them, how beautiful it was. And then you have the people who look at the plot, the story, the meaning, the repercussions in the future, and blah, blah, blah. And those people, there's nothing wrong with the real Star Trek fans nitpicking it to death, because that's what you're supposed to be able to do. You're supposed to be able to nitpick. You're supposed to be able to look and examine, and there's supposed to be different levels. It's supposed to work, and it's supposed to fall in line. It's not supposed to fall apart once you look at it. But at the same time, how far do you go with that? Because you do eventually tear it apart. Regardless, even the best Star Trek doesn't stand up to the hardest scrutiny. You will find faults, and there's a lot of videos out there online where it's like 10 things wrong with, all the problems with. I never watch them because I want to watch the show and not think of those things, because I can watch a big Hollywood blockbuster and be like, oh wow, big effects, wow, things are blowing up, wow. I can enjoy it on some level, but there are some shows that you want to be able to enjoy on different levels, like Star Trek. So I find that really frustrating, that some of the fans are just haters, and they do just want to find the smallest thing and just hate on it and ignore any obvious conclusions or solutions to the complaints that they have. Not that there aren't legitimate complaints as well, because there are, but they do revel in the other side of it. And then you have the really hardcore fans who will defend it no matter what, because they've engaged it on an emotional level and they're protective of it, but they don't really know why. They can't explain to you why it's great. They just tell you it's great and it's the best and it's better than anything else ever. Just that sort of mentality. So it's and those two are never going to understand each other. So the fandom is a mess, and it's kind of fascinating, and I want to explore it a bit more. But just focusing on the episode itself, I kind of enjoyed it. There were a few little issues that I had in the moment, and then there are some. I was hallelujahing when they went through the wormhole. I literally was like, yes. I was like, they have to go, please let them go. I kept thinking last minute someone was going to fly in and stop it from happening, and they were going to have some convoluted twist, and all the things we were expecting or wanting or wanted to be paid off wouldn't be. And no, they just went. They were just gone into the future, gone, forgotten. We don't talk about you. You are erased. Now, they're not really erased, because everyone remembers Michael Burnham starting the war. Everyone remembers them using the spore drive to say, everyone knew about that. It wasn't top secret. Now, the mission they went on to destroy Control, which Control, there wouldn't have been a great awareness of that situation, and their solution to it could be well hidden. So as far as canon goes, making it all top secret does cover up most of it, and even if they exist and we talk about their lives and that, this mission is what is important that they hide. And if they successfully do that, that would explain why we don't hear about them in the future. They were a failed experiment, and then a casualty of war, basically, or of a battle. So that does explain a lot of the problems with why we never talk about Burnham, why they were in the spore drive, why it wasn't used to save Voyager, all that stuff. It does get them out of that. They took it out of the equation because on some level they realised they had a show that didn't work in the Star Trek universe because the people who made it didn't like Star Trek, and they were making it for an audience that didn't know Star Trek and didn't like Star Trek but liked general science fiction, and they wanted them. They just wanted their brand to appeal to them, so they changed the brand. Because Star Trek has always had a small niche intellectual audience, and it was always limited by that. But those people were always well educated, people with money who could spend money on conventions and $4,000 starship models and stuff like that. And that's how Star Trek really survived and made its money, was this dedicated core of people that really loved it and spent a lot of money on it, and kept it in the public, even when the studios weren't bothering with it. And then when the studios bothered with it and promoted it, they got a fair amount of the general appeal as well. Like Next Gen, everyone watched that on some level. They may not have followed it and loved it like the actual fans, but I know a lot of my friends who aren't fans and my relatives all watched Star Trek here and there, and they knew the show. Whereas Discovery, I don't think any of them know about it. Going off on different tangents. But just looking at the episode, there are so many little things it's very easy to nitpick. And some things may just be I'm not smart enough to work them out, and they do have an explanation. Like, why do the 7 signals appear and then disappear if Michael Burnham is going back and doing all this after the fact? When did she have the time to go put the signals out in the first place to alert them to the whole problem in the first place before she actually appeared at each event? They don't explain the signals, they explain her appearing and changing. So there's that. And a lot of people complained that didn't make sense anyway because of how time and space and light are measured, that they wouldn't be able to look or find all the signals appearing at the same time, or there's some scientific explanation for why that didn't work anyway. But so there's that. There's how does Tyler appear when he's on the Klingon bridge, but he's supposed to have been killed as a sacrifice to show L'Rell's dedication to being Chancellor. The superhero suit, which is so Marvel superhero, that she's basically in the Red Angel suit flying around like Iron Man, and they've done that in the Star Trek films. They have to have like this superhero element of humans putting on a suit or something and flying through space and acting like superheroes because they're trying to appeal to the Marvel crowd, because they're that basic that they think people are that stupid that they can only like one thing, and everything has to be like Marvel to be successful, or Game of Thrones to be successful. They don't get Star Trek is its own thing with its own audience and can engage people from its own original elements and story. It's just basic as fuck. The droids, they have repair droids which come out on the ship to repair damage, much like R2-D2 and that were in the Phantom Menace, and that was their purpose, to go out and repair things and just be disposable. The old uniforms, the people from Starfleet are still wearing the old uniforms when they're supposed to. Why are the people on Earth not wearing the new uniforms? You can imagine people out on the ships not getting a delivery of them, or not wanting to use resources to create a whole bunch of new uniforms or something, or I don't know why. Why don't they have the new uniforms? Well, why? Because they probably only had the budget to make the 5 or 6 that they had on the show. So that's why no one else is wearing them. Now, why they're not wearing the ones that they made for the show before they fired Brian Fuller. Was it Brian Fuller? They fired the first showrunner, and he'd already designed the phasers and the uniforms and a lot of things that really worked. They kept the phasers, but they got rid of the uniforms. But then they put them on extras in the background of the crowd scene at Starfleet Academy at the end of season 1. Why they didn't just put people in those as well, because those were canon, and you can have both, and you can explain transition or having both at the same time. I don't know. Giorgio, why would she go to the future? Okay, they want her in the next season, but how's she going to be in Section 31? Shouldn't she be back on Earth with Tyler? Now, she could have ejected from the ship or something, because she's a smart bitch, and she doesn't. She would have a backup plan. She would have a way out. There's no reason why she would go with Michael and go with the crew. She wasn't that loyal. And why does everyone go? Why don't they just beam off all the unnecessary crew members, all the injured people, once the battle is over and they're just leaving? Why on Earth, once Control is gone and Leland is dead, why aren't they beaming everyone off the ship so the ship can go with just Burnham and the people who volunteered to go with her? So that makes no sense. It does allow us to have Culber and Stamets back together, because he stayed on the ship to be a doctor, and he has to take care of him because he's injured. So we have that. That's one of the stories that are answered. There's a lot of things that aren't answered, and a lot of little things that don't make sense. oh, like why didn't they beam Cornwall out of that little area before she had to manually? And why would the manual, like why wouldn't the door have manual um, levers on both sides? There's so many things that don't make sense. They just wanted her to die that way for some reason, and that's how they wrote it. And it doesn't make sense. They've got site-to-site transport. There's no reason for her to die like that. She died well. It was well acted, but why? Now, there's no strategy with the battles. There's no structure. It just drags on. It's just there for spectacle to make people sit back and go, oh, wow, and not think about why nothing makes sense. Now, it does look great. I did enjoy it in that moment, but then obviously you sit down and you think about it, and it all falls apart and becomes very unsubstantial and superficial. And yeah, if Leland died and he was Control, if Control had taken him over and was in him, why are they even going to the future if there's no Control now? Unless he was just some meat puppet and Control still exists elsewhere and they didn't eliminate it. That would be the only explanation for that. Now, like I said, there's two different people who are looking at this show, and the haters are focusing on all the negative. The fans are defending it no matter what. It's hard. I'm trying to stay in the middle because I do like elements of the show. It is beautiful to look at. The designs, the design work is beautiful. It doesn't fit the Star Trek universe. The themes, the colour, the tone, none of that works in the Star Trek universe of that time. It's a period piece. None of it works. But on its own, as a science fiction show, it can work. So when I consider that it's an alternative universe, alternative timeline, because everything's been changed, I'm kind of okay with it because Prime is not canon. Prime is the original series timeline of the JJ movies, not the actual original series timeline. So I can get past that. And as a reboot, I wouldn't mind if they just kept on with Pike and we've just got a reboot of the show. Because as long as it's not supposed to be actual canon, it's fine. Just like the JJ films, I was fine with them. They run them to the ground and ruin them, but I was okay with their idea. Now, what has been resolved for canon? Making them disappear into the future and never be talked again explains why they're not talked about in the future, but it doesn't actually explain any of the problems that the show raised. It doesn't actually give all the answers. They promised everything will be answered. No, just a few things have been answered, but not everything. The sphere data is safe. We know Tyler's rebuilding Section 31 to be supposedly more transparent to Starfleet, but yet covert, and no one. I guess it's supposed to be gone, and now we just see it working in the background like it does in Deep Space Nine when we eventually see it. When Spock developed the proposed the regulations that they quote in Star Trek Deep Space Nine from the Temporal Police and that. So what's left?